Hi, welcome to the March Dev Diary. Today we'll start with some more frequently asked questions before diving into some of the new features we've been working on. Are you going to do another Kickstarter? We probably won't be doing another Kickstarter, although a big reason for that is because we expect to be releasing sooner rather than later. Kickstarters take a lot of time and effort for us, basically dominating our time for the entire month they run. So even if we end up launching as late as November, we still think that our time will be better spent polishing the game for public release as opposed to managing another Kickstarter that would only grant a few people access to the game a few months early. You said you'll launch when you hit 7,000 wishlists, so I should get everyone I know to wishlist it? No, only people who are actually interested in buying the game should wishlist. If a lot of the wish lists come from people who have no intention of actually getting the game, that could actually hurt our launch, which would also hurt the overall growth of the game, meaning less new stuff in the future. But if you have friends you know will be interested, by all means share it.
Will there be tougher boss battles?
For context, the Griffin and Chimera mechs, the red and green mechs respectively, are supposed to be boss battles. But while they are more difficult than most of the other mechs, they still don't feel like proper bosses. Right now, our focus is on making general combat better, but after that we are looking to delve into better bosses. We're considering reworking the game to add a bit more of a mission structure to the metagame, similar to how Blade and Sorcery does it. You'd fight a few missions with waves of enemies, and then at the end you would encounter a boss fight. Beat the boss, and you would unlock a new map. We'll still keep the manual selection as a custom fight mode, it just wouldn't progress the metagame. We've also had a lot of discussions about what a boss mech would look like, but we don't want to talk about them in too much detail yet because we don't know what ideas we're going to keep and what'll get thrown out. Bear in mind all of this is at the concept stage and is subject to change. Will we be able to play as other kaiju or mechs? Right now, we're not planning on adding any more playable kaiju or mechs. While we definitely appreciate how cool it would be, it's a matter of opportunity cost. It took about 4 to 5 months to design, model, texture, and rig the existing monster. If we focused that time elsewhere, we could probably make 2 to 4 new maps, half a dozen new weapons, or a few totally new enemy types, which we think is where players will find the most fun. We have been considering the possibility of adding different texture skins for the existing monster though. We just think it's a lower priority than improving the combat and adding new content. Will you support PlayStation VR? Unfortunately, the answer to that is probably not. Sorry. If we do, it'll be well after our Steam release, and after we've done the investigation to see if we can run on the Quest standalone headsets. Licensing to consoles is a massive ordeal, and often not worth it for indie studios. Will there be multiplayer? Fun as that might be in theory, the answer to that is also, unfortunately, no. Monster Titan's Playground was designed from the ground up to be a single-player, overpowered kaiju experience. Whether or not a game is going to have multiplayer is a decision best made before development even begins, as it informs many of the future decisions. It also significantly slows down development time, as it makes adding new features and bug fixing significantly harder, which is why we chose not to have multiplayer for our first game. While it is possible to retroactively add multiplayer to a game, doing so in a game that wasn't designed for multiplayer is often clunky at best, and because we knew we were making a single-player game, we balanced the game to be unfair in the monster's favor, which would make fighting it in PvP very unpleasant, unless we rebalanced the monster's weapons, which would take away from the unstoppable monster fantasy that we're going for.
Is Kaiju Battle Simulator your arch rival?
Serious answer? No. Kaiju Battle Simulator is being made by another indie dev like us. We wish him the best of luck, and we love what he's doing with his game. KBS is a totally different take on the kaiju experience that does things our game can't or won't. In fact, since Monster Titan's Playground won't release publicly for a few months yet, we encourage you to check out Kaiju Battle Simulator on the Metastore. Unserious answer?
Yes, Kaiju Battle Simulator is our arch rival. KBS mechs are like Super Mech Force, but competent. Innocent kaiju like me are dismembered every day, just because we want to wreak havoc upon an unsuspecting populace. Rest in peace, Moby and Snapjaw.
That wraps up the question and answer part of this dev diary. Now we'll move on to showing you what we've been working on. One of the big problems we're trying to fix in this update is that there's really no reason to use melee weapons. Once the monster has a plasma cannon, there's really no reason to let a melee mech get into punching range. So we needed to add a feature that gave the monster a reason to get into melee range without making ranged combat less fun. One of our big solutions is shields. Shields make it much harder to hit certain mechs with ranged weapons, as only a few weapons can actually deal damage to the shields, and most are either absorbed or reflected. This means the monster must either land skill shots on unprotected parts of the mech, or get into melee range so they can rip the shield out of the mech's hand. We're hoping this kind of enemy will give players a reason to equip melee weapons more often. Spears were of course the obvious pairing to complement a shield, and as soon as we decided we were going to give the mech spears, we knew we needed to let the monster steal them and turn them against the mechs. In fact, Bap, the artist, almost demanded it be possible to spear mechs and then plant them like flags, to which I wholeheartedly agreed. The feature was very complicated to implement, lots of physics simulations that don't really like playing together nicely. In fact, the majority of the last 3 weeks was spent fixing bugs with spears, but it was simply too cool not to make it work. As you can see, we are continuing to make progress on features and content for the game while we wait to hit our 7,000 wishlist target. A target, I should add, that we are now more than halfway to reaching. We're still in a marathon here. We expect our wishlists per day to slow down as prominent YouTubers move on to other games. However, if we can keep gaining at least 30 wishlists per day, we may be able to launch as early as late July. Until then, we look forward to showing off what we've accomplished each month.